Once again, thank you all for coming. It's again amazing to see people coming out on a quote-unquote regular weeknight for a shir, Baruch Hashem, the third of the series, introduction to Megillas Rus. Wanted to thank, of course, the sponsors, the Babayev brothers, who in their recent return to the shul have already made an impact, and they're sponsoring the shir in honor of the shir. Something like that. And also, the sponsorship is for the shloshim of Alan Semensky, Aaron Noach ben Avram Zichron Livracha, a close friend of Aaron Tauber's for over 61 years. Despite blindness and multiple other medical and physical challenges, Alan managed to graduate from college and worked for 16 years. He was thus able to buy an apartment for his parents and help other family members as well. He was a Ziskite, a very good friend to his friends. He had a great sense of fairness and was troubled by any injustice. He was very proud of being Jewish and had been trying to learn more about Frumkeit for several years prior to his passing. May his memory be for a blessing.
Amen.
And thank you to the Tauber family for sponsoring. Last time we posed 3 questions. Question number 1 was, what element of Malchus was in Moab? And the answer to that was the idea of Mesiras Nefesh, going above and beyond the call, which we believe is a midah that is paramount to being a king, to be able to do more, to be able to listen to Hashem even when people are protesting against it. And we saw that this is a midah that David HaMelech had, that Yehuda had, that Tamar had, and so on, and Elimelech too would have such a midah of Mesiras Nefesh. We also asked the question about how did an aspect of Malchus get into Moab? Rus eventually would show this element of Mesiras Nefesh. How did it get there? And we explained how it got there through Lot and his relationship with his daughters. Strange as the relationship was, the Balei Tosfos say that it was done l'shem Shemayim. They honestly felt that there was no one else in the world that was still alive. The only way they could fulfill Lo So V'ra L'Sheves Yitzhara, the world was created to be filled with, populated with people. The only way they could do this was through their father. The first girl getting even more of a schus than the second girl, because having grown up in the house of Sari Menu, they were extremely tsunua, very, very much so. And they had to break through their own natural inclinations in order to be able to do what was necessary. That was a tremendous Mesiras Nefesh, the older one being Moshe Nefesh even more than the younger one. And we even pointed out naming the child Moav, not in the derogatory way that Rashi says, but rather to say, I don't want anyone to say this is a son of God, rather it actually came Me'av from my father. These girls were Moshe Nefesh as necessary, thereby sowing the seeds of Malchus into Moab, the elder son. Elimelech, being a Baal HaMesorah, as we saw from Rav Moshe David Valley, understood and knew all of these details, and therefore he went on a mission to Moab to find this neshama. And the third question that we asked, which we're going to tackle this week, is, how is Elimelech going to find it? How do you go finding a neshama? You take the special monitor out and you wave it around until you find the neshama. And therefore, Vayelach Elimelech. Elimelech went to Moab on this mission, similar to Vayelech Ish, to make a shidduch. That much he understood. And he had to find a more recent Mesiras Nefesh that would have the existence of these genes, of this midah of Malchus. And he knew that if he could get his sons, who had absolutely tremendous yichus, the yichus of himself, the yichus of his wife Naomi, if he could get his sons with this midah of Mesiras Nefesh of Malchus to marry some girls that were out there in Moab, they'd be able to begin the Malchus, which would be able to defeat the Vayhiv Mishvot HaShoftim. The fact was that in that day and age, Ish Kol HaYoshter of Yaseh, everyone did whatever they wanted. They didn't listen to the judges. They judged the judges and wouldn't listen to them, and therefore he felt he had to create a government. This was his goal, this was his mission, to create this government that through Tshuva Meira would force people to be frum and end the raw of the famine that was threatening Klal Yisrael at that time. Eglon Melech Moab had apparently a Mesiras Nefesh incident. We have in Shoftim Perek Gimel, that Ehud, a Jewish Navi, came
not the guy who stabbed Ehud ben Gera. This is
Ehud came to Eglon Melech Moav with a message. And he says to Eglon, Vayomer, Dvar Seiser li Elecha HaMelech, I have a secret thing to tell you. Apparently Ehud was trustworthy to Eglon Melech Moav, and therefore, Vayoitzu me Olav kol ha'omdim Olav. He told everyone to leave. The king had no reason to suspect anything, because even though they didn't have metal detectors, anyone who had a sword would be checking their sword at the door. And typically, people who had swords, who were righties, would keep their sword on their left hip. So you draw the sword like that. However, Ehud was a lefty. And therefore, either he only had a sword on his right hip, or he checked in one sword at the door and still had another one, the one that he would use, on his right hip. Still, how is he to use this sword? Vayomer Ehud. Ehud approaches the throne and he says, Dvar Elokim li elecha. I have a word from God for you. Says Rashi, V'tzorach atal lamod. You have to stand up. I have a word from Hashem for you. Vayokom me'al hakiseh. And Eglon, Melech Moav, stood up from his chair. He got up out of his throne. This was a tremendous Mesiras Nefesh on the part of Eglon, Melech Moav. How so? Well, the pasuk tells us, Ve'eglon ish bari ma'od. He was an exceedingly heavy individual. For him to get up usually would take assistance. People would hold his arms and help him lift, but he had already dismissed everyone because a secret had to be told to him. So all by himself, very heavy, very difficult, he's about to hear the word of Hashem, he stood up. And secondly, for a non-Jewish king to care about the word of Hashem, Nimrod didn't care when Avram Avinu told him about the word of Hashem. We all know that Paro didn't care when Moshe Rabbeinu said, I have a word for you from Hashem. So for a non-Jewish king to care about the word of Hashem, that's a tremendous thing. That's also a Mesiras Nefesh. And because of this Mesiras Nefesh, Rashi says, Vayokom yal hakiseh lekach zocha, therefore he had a schus, v'yotzem mimenu Rus. Rus came from Eglon Melech Moav. Perhaps it was his daughter, perhaps a descendant. It seems from some Chazals that it was actually his daughter, from others that it was actually a few generations off of Eglon. But because of what Eglon did, he was rewarded with someone who would sit on the throne, meaning someone who would have the gene of Mesiras Nefesh. He was Moshe Nefesh. He would have someone, namely through Rus, David HaMelech, who would also embody Mesiras Nefesh, who would eventually be a Melech al Yisrael. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, Adaf Kufhem Beis, says that not only was Rus a daughter of Eglon, Rus was a granddaughter, which might mean a descendant. We have to figure out all the years, and there was about 200 years we have to talk about here. So may have just been a descendant, but perhaps a granddaughter, that's the Lashon of the Gemara, of Balak, Melech Moav. Balak, all the way from the time of Bilam and Moshe Rabbeinu. What was the Mesiras Nefesh of Balak? Says the Gemara that Shebischar Arboim Ushtayim Karbonos, in the merits of the 42 Karbonos Shehikriv Balak that Balak brought, Zocha v'yatzim mimenu Rus. Rus came out of that Mesiras Nefesh. That was because Bilam kept failing. He wasn't able to get the curse out. So he said, let's go to a different place, see Khilah Yisrael from this side, see them from that side. Let's see if we can catch them doing something wrong, something that's not tznius, and then we can curse them. So make karbanos here, make karbanos there. 42 karbanos Balak did. He continued to listen to Bilam. That was a tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. A very bad Mesiras Nefesh. It wasn't so good to try to curse Khilah Yisrael, but it was a Mesiras Nefesh. The midah was there. And therefore, Omer of Yossi Bar Huna Rus, Bito shel Eglon, Ben Beno shel Balak Melech Moav. She was the daughter of Eglon, who was the grandson of Balak Melech Moav. So, with this misguided Mesiras Nefesh of Balak, but it's in the genes, with the very nice Mesiras Nefesh of Eglon, Rus inherits those midos, the genes of royalty. That's what Elimelech was looking for in Moab. He knew where to go. He knew to look for children of Eglon Melech Moav. So the final answer then to the question that we started with 2 weeks ago, as to how could Elimelech, the Gadol Hador, the Parnes Hador, he had the money and he was the leader of the people. How could he abandon his people when there was a Rav? How could he just leave them in their time of need? And we explained that great people don't make such big mistakes. How could we call him greedy? How could we call him stingy? So the answer is putting everything together. Elimelech had this incredible mission on his conscious mind. He knew that this shidduch between his 2 boys and Eglon Melech Moav's 2 girls will start Malchus and will end the problem of Vayhi b'Shvot HaShoftim. And therefore the Pasuk says that in Pasuk Aleph, Vayelech ish b'Beis Lechem Yehuda lagur b'Stei Moav. This man went from Beis Lechem Yehuda only to sojourn, lagur, to go in and out quickly like we have in the Haggadah. Vayogar sham. Melamed shlo yered Yaakov Avinu lishtakeya ela lagur sham. All Yaakov Avinu planned on doing in Mitzrayim was to go there for a short time to see Yosef and then go back to Eretz Yisrael. He didn't plan on staying. So too with Elimelech. It's a fast in and out mission. Make the shidduch, come back home to Eretz Yisrael. I have 2 sons. Eglon has 2 daughters, but it didn't work out. As it says in Pasuk Beis, Vayavo stay Moav vayihu sham. They decided to stay there once they were there. So what happened? Why did he do that? Why did they decide to stay? And that has to do with the subconscious. Subconsciously, Elimelech was driven and his mind was clouded by what the Bali Musa would call a dakos, a tiny, tiny amount of what Chazal tell us, Rashi said, tsaros ayin, stinginess. A tiny amount. The Gemara in Bava Basra on Daf Tzadi Aleph, Amid Aleph says that the chait that actually caused the death of Elimelech, Machlon and Kilyon, mipnei man ne'enshu, mipnei sheyotzu me'eretz l'chutz l'oretz. The actual sin that they violated was that they left Eretz Yisrael to go to Moab. What's that great sin? Rashi says, because when a person leaves Eretz Yisrael, they can no longer fulfill the mitzvahs hatzliyas ba'aretz. So they gave up the ability to do important mitzvahs. You don't care about mitzvahs, you don't care about Hashem. That shows a little bit of a kfira almost in Hashem when you leave Eretz Yisrael to go to Chutz La'aretz. That was the chait that killed them. Now, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah and Daf Yud Gimel that a person is allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael for a number of important reasons, such as to find a shidduch, such as to deal with parnasa if there's a famine and the price of things have doubled, which apparently has happened in this case. It was a rav. Nevertheless, people like, and also to go to a Rebbe to learn Torah, correct. Nevertheless, people like the level of Elimelech and his 2 sons, the Gedolei Hador. The Rambam singles them out in Hilchos Malachim, Perek Hey Halacha Tes, where he says that even though a person's not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz except to learn Torah, to marry a woman, or certain times that the Goyim are trying to destroy the Jews, and for business when there's specifically a Rav, nevertheless, even though you're allowed to leave, Eina midah chasidus. That's not a midus chasidus. It's not appropriate on some level. Sharei Machlon v'Kilyon shnei gedolei hador hoyu. It doesn't even mention their father. Machlon and Kilyon were the gedolei hador. U'mipnei tzara gedolo yotzu. And because of this terrible tzara, the Rav, they left. V'nischayvu Khilah l'makom. And they were chayav misa b'dei shemayim. Says the Kesef Mishnah, what should they have done? They should have asked for mercy for the people of their generation, and instead they did not daven on their behalf. Also, Lanius Daiti, they could have done something a little bit more. In the second parak of Megillas Rus, we find the plan that Boaz had to solve the problem of Vayhi b'meshvot hashoftim, to solve the problem that people were not listening to the judges. He had a plan that was more like tshuva me'ahava, instead of Elimelech's plan of tshuva me'yira through creation of a government. What was Boaz's plan of tshuva me'ahava? It mentions that Boaz was going to visit one of his fields. Vayhine Boaz bo mibeis lechem vayomer lakotzrim, and he saw the people reaping in the field, and he said to them, Hashem imochem, is Hashem with you? Vayomer lo, and they said back to him, Yivarecha Hashem. Hashem should bless you. Right? Like the Sfardim say when they get an aliyah by the Torah. Hashem imochem, Yivarecha Hashem. The Gemara says we derive from Boaz that when Jews greet each other, they greet each other with the Shem Hashem. And we do that. We say, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom is one of the names of Hashem. And the Gemara says this was agreed upon by the Beis Din Shalmata and the Beis Din Shalmalo. Hashem liked it. Boaz was one of the Gedolei Hador. His Beis Din also liked it. And it changed the culture of the people in Eretz Yisrael. Because every time they greeted each other, they mentioned Hashem. When you mention Hashem a lot, what happens? It increases the Yiras Shamayim of all the people that are involved. This is similar to Yosef, where Chazal say, Shem Shamayim Shigura Befiv. The name of Hashem was always on his mouth. Everything was Be'ezim Hashem. Everything was in Yirtzeh Hashem. Everything was Baruch Hashem. When you talk that way, it has an impact on who you are. That's not tshuva me'ir, that's a tshuva out of fear. That's tshuva out of ava. You realize that Hashem is involved in daily life. That has an impact on you. This type of program causes real tshuva. Elimelech and his sons could have done that, but they did not. Why did they not? Because of this tiny, subconscious negiyah, this tiny bias they had of stinginess. Again, we understand these are great people. It was such a small little lack, such a tiny drop, but it was there. Human beings have it. You have to look at it under a microscope to find it with such great people, but it was there. And what does it do when the people don't even notice that they have that midah? Because it was subconscious. Elimelech, Machlon, Kilion, they slightly misjudged the situation and left Eretz Yisrael for a noble cause, this mission, but it was slightly wrong. They should have done more like what Boaz was doing. They had this purpose of finding this neshama of Malchus, but it was slightly off. They were biased by this stinginess that caused them to come to a slightly wrong decision. And even when you're doing an Aveira Lishma, as we saw the Gemara Nazir says, Aveira Lishma can sometimes be a very great thing, even if they did something wrong, but if there's even a slight off from the Lishma factor, and here they were slightly off because of this tiny negiyah that they had, this tiny bias they had. And Aveira Lishma only counts when it's 100% Lishma. As there are such examples of an Aveira Lishma was used to kill Sisera, to kill others, women had to do various things. Aveira Lishma is a powerful thing, but only if it's 100% an Aveira Lishma. And this was not. Consciously, Elimelech took all of his money with him. Why did he take all of his money with him? Rashi says on Pasuk Hey that before Machlon and Kilion died, first they lost all of their property. Gam Shnei Ma'u Gam. First, Mitchila, Loku b'Memona, their property was damaged. Umesug Maleim Umikneim, their camels and their cattle all died. After that they died. They took all their money with them. Why did they take all the money with them? Similar to, I think, when Eliezer came to try to get Rivka to be married to Yitzchak. He came with a star in his hand. That Avram Avinu, who had Hakol, Bakol, Mikol, Kol, he was very wealthy. He wrote over all of his property to Yitzchak. Wanted to make sure that Rivka would agree to the shidduch. Look, your husband's going to be a wealthy man. All of the famous and rich Avram Avinu's property, he's giving to his son. So Elimelech took all of his property with him, took all of his cattle with him, all of his riches with him, because he knew, who am I going to make a shidduch with? Eglon Melech Moav. A melech in general must be rich. And especially if he was an Ish Bari. He must have been eating well. So he must be a very rich man. And therefore, he knew in order to make this shidduch work, he's going to have to show that he's a very rich man. He can't just come with a star. He had to bring all of his property with him. And he tried to do that. If you bring a king's ransom, you're going to be able to marry the king's two daughters. This again was what he did consciously. It sounds like a brilliant plan. However, subconsciously, he just did it out of tsaras ayin, out of stinginess. He didn't want to give his money away to Klal Yisrael, and therefore he brought it with him, so he wouldn't distribute it to them. So the Malbim points out, Vayiyu Sham, even though initially it was just an attempt to be Logur B'stei Moav, at the end it was Vayiyu Sham. That was not the original plan. The Bach in Sefer Meshiv Nefesh says he was drawn deep down to this kinship that he had with the people of Moab. They shared this midah of greediness. We have in Parshas Kiseitze that the people of Moab are not allowed to marry into Am Hashem. Why? Al dvar asher lo kidmu eschem balechem uvamayim baderech b'tzeischem mimitzrayim. That when we were leaving Mitzrayim, the people of Moab had an opportunity to give us bread, to give us water. They did not, because they were stingy. So subconsciously, Elimelech was drawn to them and decided to live there and escape all the Jewish aniyim who are asking for money. As often happens, the subconscious drive overrides the conscious drive. Much like the story that we said in the first shir about the carpenter who had a son and had an apprentice. The apprentice was great. The son was a bum. But when there's a fire in the middle of the night, you don't think, your intellect's not turned on. Who do you save if you only have a chance to save the son or the apprentice? You save your son who you love. The son who subconsciously, emotionally you're drawn to. The subconscious is what caused Noah not to go into the table, even though intellectually he knew that the Mabul is coming. But deep down he just couldn't believe that the world would be desolate. How can it be? The subconscious often overrides the conscious. That's what the Bali Musar talked about all the time. What our goal in learning Musar is to try to rein in the subconscious, to try to bring up to the surface through a cheshbon nefesh, what are those little biases that we have that are causing us to act differently than what intellectually makes sense for us to do. The subconscious overrides the conscious. And therefore, Elimelech and his sons gave up on their mission. They failed in their sacred mission. And therefore, in Pasuk Gimel, Vayamos Elimelech ish Naomi. Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died. Vatishoyer hiu shnei vaneha. She and the two sons remained. They continued a little bit with the mission. Pasuk Dalid, Vayisu lahem noshim Moavios. They married Moabite women. Shem ha'achas Orba v'shem Hashenis Rus. Vayesh v'shom ke'eser shana. They lived there for 10 years. They still didn't go home. They too failed in the mission. And therefore, in Pasuk Hey, Vayomusu gam shnei Machlon and Kilion. Machlon and Kilion also died. Vatishoyer ha'isha mishnei yladeo me'isha. And the woman remained alone, without her husband, without her children. Vatishoyer ha'isha. She alone remained to fulfill the mission, to figure out which daughter of Eglon Melech Moab held this neshama of Malchus. And then, as the Megillah continues, she also has to figure out who the man will now be, who will marry Rus once she's determined to be the right one. She finds Boaz through the miracles that happened in the second parak. And then through the third parak, she has to figure out how to get Rus and Boaz together. With a whole story about what was going on in the middle of the night, until finally in the fourth parak, how Boaz beats out Ploni Almoni because of his understanding of the Chazal, Mo'aviv lo Mo'avis, that Boaz understood he could marry Rus, while Ploni Almoni did not think he could marry Rus. And this also was part of the shidduch that Naomi was able to get together, finally producing from Boaz and Rus Oved, a true Oved Hashem, their son Oved, who was the father of Yishai, who was the father of David HaMelech. All this stems from the Mesiras Nefesh, that is the Midah of Malchus, and the mission that Elimelech tried, and his wife Naomi was finally able to fulfill. Thank you.
Thank you.